Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. Good morning at that. Hello. Hey, Sharon Landry. Good morning. Good morning, friends. All righty. Hey, Donna. Good morning to you. All right, friends. Sorry. Let's get going this morning. Sorry, I got distracted there. Good morning. It is the 17th day of September. Goodness gracious, I'm wishing away the summer already. Of July, where did I get September? On this Wednesday morning, I hope you are well. I hope you're keeping warm on this, or keeping cool. Goodness, we might have to start this one over, friends. In the heat of the day, there's a heaviness in the air out there. It's kind of like go out and cut a slice of air today. I hope it finds you well. We we just hit a little bit of a milestone in our house where we're our son Ryan is, if you know him, he's kind of, he's had some kind of, he was kind of slow out of the gate to grow, and he's kind of finally getting on the growing wagon and kind of getting some help with that, and it's all coming together now. And so we just measured him up the other day, and he has reached the grand height of 5'6", which is kind of, if you know Ryan or knew him, it's like that's an accomplishment. So I'm 5'7", his mom's 5'4", so he's kind of somewhere in the middle there, and he'll clearly outpace me. And it's one of those things that you start thinking about, because I've always said, I'm 5'7", and that if I'd just been 5'9", my life would have been completely different. I believe 2 inches would have changed, 3 inches, 2 or 3 inches would have changed my whole life, because there's this thing about, when I was serving in the Army, there was this way in which you had to make kind of height, weight, and that was always a challenge for me. And sometimes I didn't meet the challenge, and so but it was always judged on the fact of how tall you were and how much you weighed. And I always kind of felt like, the fire plug kind of physique that I was blessed with kind of betrayed me on that. And it gets you to, I tell you that just to say, there's always this incredible temptation for us all to say what might have been. It is, I think, one of the great traps of what it is to be a human being, is to look at our lives and suggest that what is somehow lesser than what might have been. And we can, and sometimes that's a really legitimate critique. That sometimes we can look back on phases in our life where we lose jobs, we lose relationships, we lose our abilities, we lose, opportunities, where because we, in whatever way, didn't seize them, didn't lean in, and we can look back on those moments with regret, or we look at our lives of kind of being staid, or being conservative, or holding it, or maybe just being too impulsive, or two things. If only I hadn't done X, Y, or Z. If only this hadn't happened. If only. And we can play the if onlys of our life again and again and again. In the 81st Psalm of David, it is a psalm of lamentation. It is one of the sad psalms, and so it is, and it is a psalm where God Himself says, "If only." That apparently even it's not just us humans that are bound to this notion of if only. That there's this way in which God was pointing to the people of Israel and saying, "If only." So it starts this way. I won't read you the whole thing. It's a little lengthy, but I'll give you the overview. It starts with this, great kind of excitement, and it always starts with this, like, always that when Psalms start with kind of this some sort of approbation, they have special instructions before them, because if you remember, the Psalms are a hymn book, so they are psalms to be sung. So there's a musician that goes with them. They weren't sung a cappella. So so there's this direction for the director of music according to Gittith of Asaph. Nobody knows what that means. But what it means is there's special directions for the music. That this is actually something this is one of those psalms that are to be played with a particular something. And it begins this way. Sing for joy to God our strength. Shout aloud to the God of Jacob. Begin the music. Strike up the timbrel. Play the melodious harp and lyre. Sound the ram's horn at the new moon, when the moon is full on the day of our festival. This is a decree for Israel, an ordinance for the God of Jacob, When God went out against Egypt, He established it as a statute for Joseph. Starts out with what? Celebration. Strike up the music, strike up the band. There is this great and wonderful thing. Blow the horn on the new moon. Get excited that we are a free people. And then it's the worm turns. I heard an unknown voice say, I removed the burden from their shoulders. Their hands were set free from the basket. Yes, they were free. We did set them free. But, and this, I'm going to skip a bunch just to get us to where God says, I set you free. I am the Lord. And then He says this, if my people would only listen to me. If my people would only listen to me. If Israel would only follow my ways, how quickly I would subdue their enemies and turn my hand against their foes. Those who hate the Lord would cringe before Him, and their punishment would last forever. But you would be fed with the finest of wheat, with honey from rock. I would satisfy you. We encounter these if-onlys of our life. And we look at and what we're suggesting is that the world should be other than it is. That our lives should be other than it is. That the afflictions I have, the struggles I have, the things, the picadillos that make up my personality, the temper that I have, the laziness that I have, the things that I have that are a part of my character that seem to be, no matter how old I get, seem to be baked into the cake. I can negotiate them, but I can't change them always. God can change them, and God does change them over time with the baking of things and the moving of things. But there's not a lot done to be, and that That when I enter into this if only, I enter into this world that says that the world should be other than it is. But when God enters into the if only, He is inviting us back to those first verses of the psalm. He's inviting us back to that first place in which we found ourselves in this world, which is sing for joy to God our strength, for He has set us free. He's removed the burdens from our shoulders. Where their hands were set free from the basket. You called in your distress, and I rescued you. That what God is inviting us to is, rather than seeing our own if-onlys, our own things that like, oh, this is broken with the world, and this is broken with me, this is broken with the thing, and this is that I've lived this life in such a way to this point where it could never be different, or it could never be other than it is. That I just got to contend with what I have, and I have to just kind of to just wistfully wish for a world other than it is. And I want to suggest to you that what God is inviting us to is to remember and to link back to that first reality of our creation, that we are, friends, born in freedom. We are not chained to the past and all that Shakespeare gets it right. The past is prelude to the story that we will tell today. The past is already removed. The chains have already been removed from our shoulders. That we are a people more often holding on to the bars and staring through them and taking our cup and protesting in the prison in which we live, but the reality being that the back wall of the cell has already been destroyed. That that we are already free, but it is us who are clinging in many ways to our if-onlys. If only these bars weren't here, I would be able to go that way. If only I was a couple inches taller, my military career would have been different. If only I had gone to a different school, and I would have had different opportunities. If only our if-onlys become bars. God's if-onlys become promises, become invitations into the joys. If only you turn around and leave the cell, we would rejoice. You know how fast things can start to move in life when we give ourselves over to the call that God has for us in this life. And that's not to say that if you're stuck or you're wounded or you're hurt that you're just not responding to God's call. Don't hear what I'm not saying. It is much more the reality that when we find ourselves dwelling in the if only I had not had this happen, if only I had not, that this is a place of when we end up losing sight of the fact that we are already free. And that when we turn around, we will see that the thing that we thought was containing us is actually an invitation to the whole world that is before us. Hear the end of this psalm again. But my people would not listen to me. Israel would not submit to me. So I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own devices. If my people would only listen to me, if Israel would only follow my ways, how quickly I would subdue their enemies and turn my hand against their foes. Those who hate the Lord would cringe before him, and their punishment would last forever. But you would be fed with the finest of wheat, and with honey from the rock I would satisfy you. the honey from the rock. Honey doesn't come from rocks. We know this. That the honey from the rock is this beautiful image of the sweetness that comes from embracing the truth of our life. The sweetness that comes from embracing the fact that I am 5'7", and I am built like a fire plug, and that all of that is a gift from God, not to be lamented, not to wish I was a little taller, not to and there's much more serious things out there. I understand that. I'm using an unserious thing to talk about very serious things. Don't think. I mean, I'm pretty narcissistic. I'm not that narcissistic, but you get where I'm saying. You get where we're going. You're with me, and that God has an unlimited number of blessings ready to pour out on you. But will you go on the adventure with Him? But will you leave the cell of your if-onlys? Only I had the money. If only I didn't have to do this. If only I didn't have to do that. If only this hadn't happened to me. If only that hadn't happened to me. If only I could reconcile with this person, or only I could reconcile with that person. There will always be something if we look through the bars that are before us. But if we will but metanoia, but repent, horrible word that I hate because it's so misunderstood. If we will but turn around and change our thinking, we will find that all those things we thought were obstacles, all those things we thought were gonna gobble us up, all those things we thought were confining us, are actually the very springboard from which God's going to send us into beautiful and great and wondrous things in life. What keeps us locked in, what keeps us alone, what keeps us in silence, what keeps us is this stubborn heart, right? He says it right in the song. But my people would not listen to me. Israel would not submit to me, so I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own devices. Friends, wherever you find the stubbornness of your heart, maybe it's a grief that you just can't let go of. Maybe it's a way that maybe it was a wound that you might have received years ago, decades ago. Maybe it was a pain that just shaped you in such a way that you in a promise of youth became a crooked little tree instead of a straight little tree. Whatever. Maybe it was a longing for a thing that did not happen, or a wondering of what would have happened if only. In all of this, all of those things, and more than I can name, originate from our stubborn hearts that want what we want when we want it, that want to be in control, that want to be the ones for whom we dictate that which we want, and that which would place us, given the opportunity, in the place of God. Friends, I didn't organize your life. You didn't even really organize your life. I can barely even organize my own life. But the trust is that there is an order. There is a way in which we have been liberated from Egypt. There is this way in which we have been, that the burdens have been removed from our shoulders, if we only will set them down and give them over to the one who is organizing our life, to the one who is laying things out, to the one who does have a way forward for us, the one who has already defeated all of those enemies out there, those fears, those anxieties, those worries, those challenges, that stinking thinking in your head that gets you that gets you down and bites it, and bites at your soul. I want to invite you today to turn over your stubborn heart, to turn over those things, those bars that you're staring at, rather than the vista that is beyond them. Because when we do, if only, of God becomes a promise and a banquet and a life filled with abundance. And that's my hope for each one of you today. All right, friends. Let me come in and say hi. Hi, Jean. Nice to see you here. Hey, Jamie. Hey, Jane. John, I hope you're doing well. Hope everybody is doing well out there today, and that you will find yourself free at last. Free at last. Great God Almighty, you are free at last from this stubborn heart and from this life of if only. Peace and grace to you, my friends. We'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.